Be ready, be strong. The call of a hacker rips through the air, a battle cry that shakes the soul. This is rugby, where the All Blacks, Springboks, Wallabies and Los Pumas meet with thunder in their boots and history in their veins. It's Jonah Lomu bulldozing through entire backlines, Dan Carter slotting the impossible angle, George Gregan barking orders till the last whistle, Brian Habana outrunning the wind. It's Emily Scarrett standing tall under fire, Portia Woodman flying like lightning down the touchline, Gabrielle Vernier slicing through defences, Magali Harvey's magic feet, Ellie Kildun's fearless power. In South Africa, it's a game that helped heal a nation. In Argentina, it's passion that's grown from the fringes to the world stage. In Australia, it's the rebel code, forever fighting for space. And in New Zealand, it's everything.
Randall and Lomu, can he do it? Larkham! Lomu has won the game, surely, for New Zealand.
And everywhere, it's 80 minutes of pure heart, tackles that rattle bones, cries that lift stadiums, pride that spans oceans. This is not just a sport, this is identity, defiance, glory. This is Rugby Union. And this is the Sporting Almanac Podcast.
Evening.
Good evening, Ben. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you, firstly, before I dive straight into the subject?
I'm fine. I'm groovy. I've had a busy weekend, but now I'm sat with you recording, so what could be better?
Yeah, commiserations on the curtain raiser as well.
It's only important if you win it, isn't it? If you lose it, it's just a glorified friendly, as we all know.
Yes, that is...
Fair play to Crystal Palace.
Yeah, fun for them. Doesn't matter to you. Egg chasing, though.
Yeah, so... double helping of rugby at the moment for anyone who likes the men's game, Rugby Championship, ready to start this weekend, and then anyone who likes the women's game, which is increasingly me. The Women's World Cup is starting a week on Friday, so that is the 22nd of August, and I can't wait.
Yeah, well, major international tournaments are always awesome. The World Cup will be awesome in the same way that the Women's Euros was awesome, and the Rugby Championship never disappoints because... it's so high quality.
Yeah, I think Southern Hemisphere rugby particularly, I think rugby is a sport where when it's at its best, when it's at its absolute peak, there's almost no sport in the world better than it. However, Northern Hemisphere rugby often, or English rugby particularly, often can be quite methodical, cerebral, tactical, not necessarily spectacular. Southern Hemisphere rugby, perhaps a little bit more exciting.
Very exciting.
But actually, I really do quite like women's rugby. I think it's got something a bit more wild to it that you don't necessarily see in the hyper-controlled men's game nowadays. I'm looking forward to the World Cup.
Yeah, they're both going to be really cool tournaments in their own right. But yeah, I agree with you about Southern Hemisphere rugby. What is going to come very clear is that Southern Hemisphere rugby is better than Northern Hemisphere rugby as a general rule, and one nation stands above all other nations when it comes to playing this game.
And who would that be, Ben?
That would be our friends from New Zealand, the All Blacks.
Indeed, yeah. The predominant team in women's rugby since it started properly in the early 90s, won 6 out of 9 World Cups so far, but they do not, this is important, they do not go into this tournament as the favourites. The favourites and the world number one at the moment are the England women.
Yeah, England women are on an absolute flyer, an absolute tear. They haven't lost in ages.
Well, they fully professionalised, I think 6 years ago now, which is a massive deal. When they won the World Cup in 2014, it was a mix of semi-pros and amateur players who won it for us. Nowadays, fully professional, changed the game completely. A lot more high-profile women rugby players as well. A few good podcasts going around. The Good, the Scaz, and the Rugby being the main example, which I would recommend to anyone to listen to because it is very entertaining. But yeah, it's a whole different game to even 4 years ago, the last tournament, or 3 years ago because of COVID. It's a whole different game now.
I think we lost the last finals in New Zealand, but we should have really won that. I think we hadn't lost.
It was epic, yeah.
We hadn't lost in forever, and then we got a red in the final and got done by a score or something.
Yeah, it was an early red, which was, I mean, it was head-to-head contact. You can say it was a red, but in the second half, New Zealand had a similar head-to-head contact, which was deemed a yellow card. So, controversy, England lost by 3 points, but that's rugby. Have to get revenge this year.
Yeah. And the Kiwis don't even go into this ranked second, do they?
Yeah, you are correct. Yeah, Canada is second in the world, barely, by just over a point. England away ahead, I think 8 points clear of Canada. But yeah, England, Canada, New Zealand, France, then Ireland, Australia in the women's.
And we just pumped the French in a warm-up. So yeah, we're going into this hot. We're at home. We're favourites.
Yeah.
The writing is on the wall. You just got to bring home the bacon to mix our metaphors.
Yeah, a real good mix of experience and young talent. So see what happens. But anyway, rugby.
Yeah, rugby. I mean, I know you're going to do an intro a little bit to the basics in a sec, but in fact, why don't you start there, and then we'll go to the Southern Hemisphere.
So yeah, so we appreciate that not everyone listening to our podcast is an expert in the sport that we're talking about. In fact, it's probably best for the most part that you're not, because you won't notice when we make terrible errors, which I'm sure we do all the time.
Routine.
What we're going to start doing is, at the start of episodes, we'll try and keep it brief, maybe like 3 minutes or less, but little how-to guides on the sport in question. So today I've got a how-to Rugby Union. You want to hear it?
Yes, I do. I do want to hear it. I'm actually intrigued to see how you translate this.
I'm going to take a deep breath here. They say Rugby Union is a game for thugs played by gentlemen. You always shake hands at the end, you always listen to the ref and call him sir, and sharing a beer with your opponent after the whistle goes is the done thing. You score by getting over the opposition's line and grounding the ball. This is called a try, even though you've already succeeded. You then get to kick the ball through the H-shaped post, and it's 2 more, called a conversion. Do the same from a drop kick in open play or from a penalty, and you get 3 points. Simple. Tackles can be hard but not high. Tackle players on the floor have to let go of the ball, which lead to a bundle of polite stamping called a ruck. If a player doesn't go down, this could lead to a maul, which is a big shoving match usually ruined by the referee. Dropping the ball is bad, passes must go backwards, but kicks can go forwards. You can only chase it if you're behind the ball when it was kicked, or else you're offside. Scrums are awarded for minor offences, which is a more organised shoving contest / group hug. Worse fouls lead to penalties that can be kicked for points or touched to gain territory, because that's what it's all about. Gaining yards, winning the ball, creating gaps and running through them, tackling hard, staying disciplined, giving it your all and celebrating or consoling with a nice cold beer afterwards. There's 15 players on each side, 8 forwards, 7 backs. Forwards first. You've got props who are as wide as they are tall and hard to knock over, either the quietest or the loudest guy on the team, no in between. Hookers, small guys who barely look alive, let alone athletes, who throw, maul and, well, hook, though less hooking nowadays. Second rows who are professionally tall, great for lineouts, not so great for their lower backs. Flankers, open side and blind side, who are tackling machines and would rather be backs. Concussion magnets they are. And number 8, jack of all trades and masters of pain, very good in a fight. Then the backs, scrum halves, tiny, dodgy hair, kick when they should pass and pass when they should kick. The team can't function without them, and man do they know it. Fly half, £90 haircut, kicks better than they pass, but does neither as well as they think they do. Would rather have been a footballer. Centres, inside and outside. Inside, good at running in a straight line, loves contact more than thinking. Outside, either too mad or too slow to be a winger. No one loves rugby more than they do. Wingers, left and right, can be player of the match or come off the pitch without a spot of mud on them. The latter is the other back's fault for not passing. The former, well, that's just their own brilliance, isn't it? And finally, the fullback, uncoachable, fail fly half, hero complex, big ego and questionable commitment to the cause. Somehow, still the most popular guy on the team. The backs say it's all about speed and technique. The forwards, strength and heart. It's a sport for everyone. Love from Britain and Ireland to the Pacific. From Canada to New Zealand. From Japan to Italy. And a growing number of places in between. It's global. It's intense. It can be brutal and bloody, but it's always bloody brilliant too. That is Rugby Union.
I think you've made that as accessible as one could hope in an introduction to it. So, Can I just add some additional layer of complexity there for no reason whatsoever, other than the fact that because we're talking about the Rugby Championship and some teams from the Southern Hemispheres in the Rugby World Cup, in the Southern Hemisphere you would also call your scrum half your halfback, your fly half your 5'8", or your first 5'8", and then your centres your 3/4, and then and your wingers as well fall into that category as well. So there are different names for it depending on where you are. It's a very big sport in the Southern Hemisphere, as we said at the top. Well, Oceania is really where the sport laid down its roots in the Southern Hemisphere, with the noticeable exception of South Africa. But there's a theme emerging here. They're all former Commonwealth nations or current Commonwealth nations.
Former members of the British Empire.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. And in the men's game and in the Rugby Championship, which is obviously part of this episode, is traditionally been dominated by 3 of those countries, New Zealand, South Africa, and Australia. But in more recent times, it has included Argentina, who also have a long, rich history of playing rugby, longer than you might think, but have really come to prominence since the last 30 years over there. So yeah, is it worth us just having a quick chat about the main players of the Rugby Championship?
Always, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let's start with the main men and women. New Zealand, the All Blacks. I've got no fucking clue why they're so good at this game.
It's because they're obsessed. Australia are probably the best sporting nation pound for pound in the world.
Fair.
In terms of it's only got about 20 million people living in Australia. They are immense at a lot of sports, but they play a lot of sports. They do Rugby Union and Rugby League, who they're the best in the world at. Obviously, Australian rules football, athletics, football, soccer, which they're getting better at as well. They've been to a few World Cups in the past 20 years or so. They like to spread their talent across many sports. In New Zealand, they basically just play rugby, with a bit of cricket as well. A few other sports from time to time, but
good at rowing. Good rowers.
Yeah, of course. They do other sports pretty well, but they are obsessed with rugby.
Yeah.
That is their first love, and it will be their last.
Yeah, they are extremely good at it. We're not obviously talking about the Men's World Cup in this episode, but that's a bit of an anomaly, and their success, which they have had lots of, or lack of it when compared to their dominance of the sport more generally in the World Cup, is a misnomer. It's an anomaly. Their record is unrivaled across all sports, really, in terms of dominance that's been achieved. And I actually read something really interesting, mate, in preparation for this, which I don't know if it's true or not. If any New Zealanders listen to this and they think that this is total bullshit, then please feel free to say. But I just thought it was fascinating, so I thought I'd tell you it. But apparently before Europeans arrived in New Zealand, the Maori were playing, the Maori being like the indigenous people of New Zealand, were playing a ball game called, and now this is where you really need to forgive me, Ki o Rahi, which is basically a ball game played with a small round ball called a ki, and it's very fast paced, and apparently it incorporates very similar skills to rugby union, netball, tag rugby, and has been likened to Aussie rules. And the origin of it is very much unknown, but its link to rugby union as a sport in terms of did they evolve into one another is pretty tenuous. But what it has been attributed with is influencing style of play and
interesting.
Yeah, they're throwing the ball around and the fast paced nature of the way in which they play, which you sort of referenced earlier. And I just thought that was really intriguing, because I was literally Googling and going down all sorts of rabbit holes, why are New Zealanders so fucking good at rugby? And that came up, but it might be bullshit.
Oh, when has Google ever lied to us?
Well, yeah. The other thing that I came across, though, which is really interesting, is one of the reasons it genuinely seems to have taken off and embedded so deeply in New Zealand culture is basically every aspect of the community adopted it as a sport, which is not, for example, what happened in South Africa. So,
yes, yeah, a fair point.
Yeah, so it's apparently rugby was introduced to New Zealand in 1870 by a bloke called Charles John Monroe, who had basically been studying at Christ College, Finchley in London. And when he returned to New Zealand, he brought the game to Nelson College, and then he spread it to Wellington, and then it spread from there. And basically, it was sort of within 4 years, it was a pretty organised sport in the country, 1874, 75, that kind of region. And it was obviously, therefore, as was the time, a white colonialist sport it was kind of a pastime designed to sort of maintain loyalty to the crown and links to the, the mothership, so to speak. But everyone took to it. So like the Maori started playing it, the poor started playing it, the affluent started playing it, and it really did like take a proper stranglehold in the country. And I mean, fucking hell, if you need an illustration of how much of a stranglehold it's taken, they have a positive winning record against every single test playing nation, and they have a win record of over 74% in the men's game.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's not like they're playing bad teams as well. Like, for many, many years, they'd only play at World Cups. This is even getting later, only at World Cups. Or they play test matches against touring teams, which would always be England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, or the British and Irish Lions. Or they play South Africa, Australia, obviously once the Rugby Championship started. You don't play, easy friendlies where you're going to rack up 80, 90 points very often. You're playing against your peers more often than not, and they still have a close to 75% win record.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's actually insane. And if you think the men are good, the women's team wasn't established until 1990. It had been growing in quite a lot. Like the game, as in the women's game, had been growing quite a lot of strength and popularity in New Zealand, I think, throughout the 80s. But 1990 was officially the start date. They have a winning record of 82% in test match rugby.
Solid.
Like, these guys just whoop everyone, is what we're trying to say. Like, start from the basis. If you know nothing else about rugby, if you take nothing away from this, just take away the fact that New Zealand are really, really damn good at it.
Yeah, and you've saved me explaining that as well, because when it comes to the Women's World Cup, as I said, 9 tournaments so far, 6 of them have been won by New Zealand, including the last one where, as mentioned, they beat England in the final, 34-31 in what was a ridiculously good game. Would have been better had England won, but, can't win them all.
Can't win them all. Yeah, and then the second nation I was going to speak about, you've already introduced very nicely, which was Australia, known as the Wallabies. You've already spoken about like how competitive they are and how proud a sporting nation they are, and I agree with all of those sentiments. Yeah, I mean, Rugby Union, the one thing he probably didn't say is Rugby Union is not the most popular sport in Australia.
No, far from it, actually.
It's declining in popularity, if anything, and there's been a lot of tears about that Lions defeat, and they've heard a lot of things saying, if we took it seriously, we'd have beat you. Well, you had 12 years to prepare, so, never mind. There's always another opportunity in 12 years' time. But, jesting aside, they prefer Rugby League, which I think is known as AFL, and Aussie rules. I've got that wrong way around. NRL, sorry, and AFL.
NRL is Rugby League, and AFL is Aussie rules, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, they're still very good. Like, yeah. This is an interesting statistic. I mean, I don't know why I'm doing this to you and, like, just telling you stuff, but I guess that's the point of this this podcast,
I was going to say, isn't that the whole podcast? Yeah. I don't know why I'm telling you all these facts about sport on this Sporting Facts podcast.
Yeah. So to put this into context, that you mentioned earlier, the population is around 27 million. They only have 85,000 registered players in Australia. And to give that some context, New Zealand has a population of 5.3 million, and they have 150,000 registered players. And
it's everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, and
built into the fabric of society in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're going to say any sport is that in Australia, it would be probably Aussie rules.
Aussie rules, yeah.
Certainly
and cricket.
From a ordinary person perspective. Or cricket, yeah. God, they even mentioned cricket with Australia.
Yeah,
God,
it's probably their best sport, yeah.
They love sport.
I mean, like, in Australia, New South Wales and Queensland account for 80% of all players.
Yeah.
So it's very specific to certain states, basically. And it arrived in Victoria as early as 1850. Tom Willis was, who was actually the founder of Australian rules football, so Aussie rules. He attended rugby school.
Nice.
And basically brought it back.
So it's a bit ahead of the curve then.
Yeah.
Just straight from the horse's mouth, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Which is really cool. The women are called the Wallaroos, which I quite like, rather than the Wallabies.
Yeah.
And they've been playing since 1994. So yeah, 2 sporting behemoths in New Zealand and Australia. The next country is a bit more controversial. Can I have a guess?
Oh, well, I'm going to guess the one you were talking about is the one who is number 1 in the men's rankings currently.
Yes, indeed. The Springboks.
South Africa.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is about the South Africans, but they seem to produce absurdly high numbers of mutants, basically.
Yeah.
They are big people.
Yeah.
I think this is really interesting because I was saying earlier about like it not being adopted by everybody in South Africa compared to say New Zealand.
Yeah.
There's 650,000 players in South Africa, which is a lot, right? It's higher than both Australia, well, significantly higher than Australia and way higher than New Zealand.
Yeah.
But that's in a population of 64 million. So therefore, there's actually, proportionally speaking, not that many players. However, poverty is obviously a huge factor in South Africa. And I think it's something like around 44 million people in South Africa are in some sort of poverty by international metrics. And so your 650,000 people are coming out really of, probably I'm not saying nobody in poverty plays rugby because, that would be a pretty bold thing to say from a position of complete ignorance, but probably half the number of the population are your eligible pool, really.
Yeah, there's also the factor that they're obsessed with football, association football as well. In South Africa, it does go across racial lines, obviously. Historically, the black population loved football and the white Afrikaan population loved rugby. Obviously, things are changing for the better in South Africa in the last 30 years, which is good. And those lines are somewhat blurred, but it is still more predominant in those ethnic groups. And I do think if they invested in their football team as well as they invest in their rugby team, they'd be the best team in Africa, certainly, and one of the best teams in the world, potentially.
Yeah, got a huge population, very, very...
Not a balanced focus.
Yeah, very, very interested and engaged population.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you flirted with it there, but the weird thing is that rugby is popular amongst the black community, like, as a sport, or at least it was when it arrived in South Africa, but it's obviously for so long because of apartheid and stuff. The team was just selected along racial lines, so they just didn't pick black people to play for the national team, which led to a decline in its popularity and led to this.
Yeah, obviously fuels resentment as well. Obviously, that unsurprisingly,
exactly,
it becomes a symbol.
Yes, and it did, and that was what I was going to say. The Springboks they were perceived as prominent representatives of apartheid South Africa. I mean, in fact, their attitude to the Springboks, it was obviously apartheid that did this, but like the Springboks being their biggest export of sport was a big driver in them becoming increasingly isolated internationally. Because obviously sport is supposed to be, for all, and the sort of thing that sort of allows human beings to put differences aside and have fun together. So yeah, like pretty, I mean, like you could do hours on South Africa. Like we spoke about a little bit about it on our Lions podcast and apartheid, but let's just say this. Rugby supposedly arrived in South Africa when a bloke called Canon George Ogilvy became headmaster of Diocesan College. He introduced the game from Winchester College, and it's obviously then brought over in union form. The rules of union form were brought over by British colonialists who were actually mining South Africa in and around Cape Town. So yeah, that's how rugby got to South Africa. And the Springbok women only played their first test in 2004, which stinks a little bit considering how big a rugby nation South Africa is. But they have always been a little bit behind the curve.
Yes, they have. They're not big competitors. The South African women's team, I think they're only 12th in the world at the moment. I think they're below Japan, the USA, and others. So,
which is crazy.
Yeah, not a big sport at the moment. Who knows? May change in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Like you said about population and funding and access and stuff. And we've said this on the football podcast about the women's football. We've said this, on other sports when we've been talking about women's football. It is just all about access and opportunity. And in a population of 64 million people, if half of them are women, if you give them a chance to play, you're going to get good. Especially when you already like the game and are good at it.
Well, there's no reason why the country who have the best men's team in the world can't also have the best women's team in the world. In fact, if anything, it's a slightly lower threshold at the moment as other countries begin to professionalise. You have the opportunity there, as England have. England fully professionalised their team 6 years ago, and great surprise, look who's number one in the world right now, and hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe turn that into a World Cup this year. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, we haven't mentioned the Pacific Islands of Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, because they're not in the Rugby Championship, but they do play. They compete in the Women's World Cup, I think, don't they?
They should be, yeah.
But yeah, I haven't focused on them for the purpose of this episode because Rugby Championship, there's 4 big teams. And the 4th big team is Argentina, or Los Pumas, as they are known. I mean, say something nice about the Argentinians, Ben. They are passionate and they play their sport with Latino fire and flair. Is that nice?
Yes, they do. There's a compliment in there somewhere.
They eat a lot of beef and therefore they're fucking good at scrummaging.
This is true.
I think that's actually true, isn't it? I mean, maybe not the beef link, but they also have big men and they are good at scrummaging.
Yeah, that was what they were historically famous for back in the days where they were sort of a tier 2 nation, sort of heading towards the top but not quite there yet. They were just famed for their scrummaging and their ability to compete up top and the size of their forwards. But then, probably the last 20 years or so, they've certainly broken out and now they're I don't know if there's a country they haven't beaten at some point, and they've got to some World Cup semi-finals and obviously in the Rugby Championship now, which is great.
Yeah, they are a really good side now. They're like a top 5 side in the world. I mean, they've got 110,000 registered players from a population of 45 million. So that kind of gives you a frame of reference. That's more registered players in Australia, which is very ironic given the reasons that their entry into the Rugby Championship was delayed, which I can probably talk about in a bit more detail when we talk about how the Rugby Championship or the Tri-Nations came about. But one of the things that's really interesting about Argentina, which I hadn't even considered, and I wondered if this has crossed your mind, but one of its main problems for getting good at rugby has been its geographical isolation. So
yeah, finding teams to play against.
Yeah,
other than Uruguay.
Exactly. So Chile and Uruguay play. Uruguay obviously are.
Brazil play a little bit.
They do, yeah, a tiny bit. I think the women are actually better.
Also in women's rugby, yeah.
Yeah. So they basically just, they don't have anyone that on the continent that they can play. And then even in North America, like, again, Canada women are good and the US women are good. And they both have men's teams, but they're not in the league of Argentina. So yeah, they haven't had a reasonable game on their own continent basically ever. I think the game actually, I was saying it started way earlier in Argentina. Apparently the game got to Argentina in 1873. No surprise for guessing who took it there. The British, again.
Probably the Scottish, I imagine. But
yes, it was
even so,
expats or, what would have been expats back in the day. Yeah, they took it over there and it was basically exclusively played by them and then it just sort of slowly infiltrated society. But they didn't play a team outside of their continent until 1910. When they played the British and Irish Lions, basically, and the Lions absolutely battered them.
Not this year, though.
Not this year, yeah, but not a test match, so, don't get too excited. I'm not bitter about that at all. It would have been like 12-0 or whatever it was if it wasn't for that. I know it wouldn't have lost the last test. It doesn't matter.
There might have been more impetus to win that last test, though.
Yeah.
Although they were bloody useless, so it wouldn't have made a difference.
That's true. And obviously the Aussies play very, very well.
They did, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Argentinians, like, they toured pre-World War II to play the junior Springbok, and then they toured France post-World War II. I think they were unsuccessful in both those tours. And then they finally went to South Africa in the 1960s and got absolutely battered. But that's actually a really important tour for Argentinian rugby because they came across a bloke who is largely considered as like a revolutionary, a bloke called Isaac van Heerden, who was a coach of, is it Natal? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
And he's considered basically a coaching genius. And they met him as part of their preparations for that tour. They got in touch with him because they were going over to South Africa and, they wanted basically to see if he would come and give them a hand. And he did. And he oversaw like a boom in the game. And I think they produced like one of their best teams until sort of the modern era. And one of their best ever players played in that team. And so really like that tour to South Africa was a seminal moment in the development of Argentinian rugby. And they do have a female side, but they have not yet played a test match, which is pretty...
Yeah, I was going to say they're not even ranked in the test rankings currently.
Yeah. They do play sevens.
Let alone obviously nowhere near the World Cup. They do play sevens, to a decent standard.
Yeah, so it's not not a crushed women's game out in Argentina, but again, surprising, like the South Africans, surprising that they are not in a more advanced position in their women's rugby because they, again, you would expect them to be a force to be reckoned with.
And again, there's no good reason for them not to, on the face of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, these 4 countries, they're the makeup of the Rugby Championship in the men's game, as we keep saying, repeating ourselves here. But there is a very, very rich rivalry, and one of the things we've spoken about previously, again, I think it was on the Lions episode, was rugby wasn't professionalised until 1995. And so all of these guys are just playing each other in test matches and tours. And Australia and New Zealand first played each other in 1903. South Africa toured both nations in 1921. But there's never been any formal competition between them. Basically, like the home nations in the Northern Hemisphere, now known as the Six Nations, and previous iterations, Five Nations, etc., didn't ever exist. And so they only met sporadically. And that rivalry was still, like, despite that, the rivalry was, like, crazy intense. And I think South Africa and New Zealand in particular, not just because they're both really fucking good at this game, but also because of apartheid, basically really exaggerated the rivalry because Maori players were not selected for tours in South Africa. That led to...
Because they just wouldn't be allowed into the country.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think New Zealand is obviously, like, it's got its own indigenous people and stuff, and I don't think they're absent problems historically because there would be, like, unrest and protests in New Zealand about the decision to omit the Maori players and things like that. And it all kind of came to a head in 1981, which is known as the Springbok Tour or just the Tour. And it's one of the most controversial rugby tours ever because it followed the 1977 Gleneagles Agreement, where the nations of the Commonwealth basically were discouraged from having any sporting contact with South Africa. And then New Zealand still allowed that tour to go ahead. So the South Africans turned up in New Zealand to, like, major widespread protest and, like, outrage. The first game was cancelled because the protests were so severe.
Fair enough.
And then the other three were heavily disrupted. The last game, whilst it wasn't called off, got flower bombed by planes, which is insane.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's one way of doing it.
And the thing that's really cool, the thing that is genuinely quite cool about this is that it's gone down in history, right? There were no injuries as a result of these protests, apparently. It was all peaceful, which is really quite impressive. Very organised as well from New Zealanders. But the long and short...
What year was this, sorry?
1981.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That was very recent.
Yeah. And it resulted in... This tour is the thing that resulted in the cessation of the sporting competition, basically, between countries and South Africa until the end of apartheid. And it caused a dip in popularity in rugby in New Zealand as a result, because people were really pissed off with the fact that they hosted the South Africans. And it was, the straw that broke the camel's back for South Africa and international sport. But you didn't know that.
Fair enough. No, I actually didn't know that. I'm actually ashamed of myself. I don't actually... There's one thing... I know a bit about apartheid and South African history, mainly around... I know I've read books on Robben Island, which is very interesting, and obviously the football played there. But no, in terms of the actual sporting boycotts, I know a bit about the rebel tours that still went there, including into the 80s, which, shame on the people who went. But yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it was cool, mainly because it is... that was, like you say, it wasn't rebel stuff. It was organised major sporting tours between two of the most prominent rugby playing nations in the world. And yeah, like, obviously apartheid then ends, and that is in and around, it's very shortly after that, the rugby is professionalised. And with that came the need for a professional tournament for the Southern Hemisphere. And one was set up.
And what came of it, yeah.
In 1996, the Tri-Nations was set up. Pretty simple stuff. I mean, this is about as accessible a sporting tournament as you're ever going to find. 3-nation tournament between 1996 and 2012. Play each other. The format sort of ebbed and flowed. Like, the number of times you play each other varied between 2 and 3 times. But it just effectively, let's just call it home and away. Little league table. Whoever wins it, wins it. And yeah, it was in 2012 that it was rumoured that... Well, it wasn't actually rumoured. 2012 is when Argentina joined, basically.
Yeah.
Their involvement was rumoured in the early 2000s, but obviously it was a very long time and very protracted and prolonged until they were able to join. It was very controversial because Argentina was the only Tier 1 nation that didn't have any regular competition, and obviously there's a geographical reason for that, which we've already spoken about. And it was then announced in 2009 that there was an intention for them to join, but it still wasn't made official until 2011, and then the tournament actually expanded in 2012. And do you want to have a fucking wild guess about what the main reason for the delay was?
I'm not sure. You tell me.
Nah, you know. What's the cause of everything in sports these days?
Politics?
Money.
Oh, money. Oh, sorry. I do apologise. I sometimes forget rugby being a newly professional sport, forget they're not actually above that.
Yeah. So it was the end of the current TV commercial deal.
I see. Fair enough.
And that's what they waited for, because basically the existing members didn't want to split the ticket, and had probably already budgeted their spend for what money they were going to be getting from the TV rights deal or what have you. I'm being a bit cynical here, guys. I wasn't at the table, but Like it's a pretty strong inference that you can draw from what was going on. They also added a heap of stipulations on Argentina in order to join regarding like player availability, because their players played predominantly in Northern Hemisphere rugby.
Yeah.
Developing domestic leagues and professionalism in Argentina and commercial investment, which is all pretty ironic considering they have more players than, say, Australia do. Although I don't think that's been a steady number, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's also pretty crazy because their involvement was long overdue, mate. And I know you know this, and I'm sort of preaching to the choir here, but they came third in the 2007 World Cup, which you and I went to.
Yeah.
They also
and they were impressive throughout.
They were. Beat France in the opening day and in the third and fourth playoff, who were the hosts. And then they made the quarterfinals again in 2011, which you and I were also at.
Yeah, indeed.
So, yeah. Oh, no, sorry. We weren't at that one. We went to the one in 2015. That was
2015,
yeah.
I was going to say, it wasn't 2011 in New Zealand. I'm pretty sure I've not been to New Zealand before.
Yeah. It was 2011.
Sadly.
Yeah, so I get my dates muddled up. We saw them win a quarterfinal, not losing one. It doesn't actually tell the full story, this either, because in 2003, and this is what I mean about it being long overdue, so in 2003, they went out in the groups of the World Cup, and you're probably thinking, oh, well, group stages, like, why would that get you a seat at the top table of a Southern Hemisphere tournament? And that would be a reasonable question to ask, except they went out in a group which contained Australia and Ireland. Australia were the hosts and made the final, and were the reigning world champions, and Ireland beat them by 1 point. So, like, they could have easily basically made 3 quarters in a row or whatever it is. 2 quarters in a row. No, 3. Yeah. 2007 they made the semis.
It's a thing about the Rugby World Cup, the old Rugby World Cup format, because I think they're expanding it, sadly. I hate 24-team tournaments, as I've mentioned several times before. But yeah, it's the thing about it is, if you are ranked 9th in the world, which is obviously a pretty good ranking, you end up in a group with 2 teams who are in the top 8. That's how the seeding works, and
CC Japan
always is the case. So there's one group, as in England's group at 2015 that we were just talking about.
Killer.
England, Australia, and Wales all in the same group, and England didn't get through the group stage that year
as hosts.
To our great shame, as hosts, yeah. Very much a low point in English rugby history.
It was, but yeah, I mean that's basically that's the Rugby Championship, mate. It's really straightforward. I mean, they're talking about Japan and Fiji potentially trying to enter it as like other expansion sides. They're always flirting with that. Japan are probably, Fiji are really damn good as well, considering the size of that country. They are incredible at sevens as well.
They are, yeah.
But whether or not they'll be allowed in, I don't know. I think the reason they've set up that World Rugby League thing is probably an attempt to long off the expansion of the Rugby Championship for the time being. Tonga and Samoa are probably not quite good enough to stake a claim yet. But yeah.
True, but how do you get better? You need more high comparative matches, and I guess Japan and Fiji have pulled themselves to that point. Yeah, the only problem with it is you either have as a 6-team tournament, and I think it'll be a decent level 6-team tournament, but then you end up with less games between New Zealand and Australia, and New Zealand and South Africa, which the fans probably don't want to see. Or you make it into a sort of 2 groups of 3 semi-final kind of thing, but then I don't know how you split them. Do you split them the old Tri-Nations, in which case you have one stacked group of 3, or alternatively you have promotion and relegation, so you have like 2 tiers, but then Australia are never going to accept playing in the second tier tournament, are they?
Yeah, well, Argentina probably wouldn't,
South Africa as much,
wouldn't be too happy about it either.
Yeah, true. It's difficult.
It is difficult, and I agree with you, but you do need access, like you say, to get better. So
yeah, I mean, from a purely sporting point of view, who cares if someone like Australia ends up getting relegated from it? Probably do them good, but they're never going to accept it. The status quo is going to be hard to change.
The thing that you said that I think is really the kicker is the home and away matches. That is actually genuinely a real attraction to the Rugby Championship, because there are big games, but those big games are not just high numbers of games for gate receipts. Like, there is a challenge in going, away to South Africa every year, whilst also having the opportunity to beat them at home every year. And the fans love that, and it is exciting. And there's a tournament, not a tournament, there's a cup, a very famous cup, very much dedicated to that fact, that is part of the Rugby Championship.
Indeed.
In fact, there are a few cups, but one particularly famous cup, the Bledisloe Cup.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, big rivalry. New Zealand and Australia. People from those countries probably don't need any introduction. There's like an argument about when it really began. There's basically an argument about whether or not it includes a game that Australia won. Australia say that it started in 1931 when they won. New Zealand say that it started in 1932 when they won, which is kind of like symptomatic of their rivalry, really. And then the weird thing about the Bledisloe Cup is it hasn't always it is now consistently played, but it wasn't always consistently played between 1932 and 1981. But then it's been contested annually since 82, sometimes in 3-game series, sometimes in 2-game series. Is now what they do is they play 3 games, but 2 of them count towards the Rugby Championship, and then the other one is like a decider, I guess. And not that a decider is often needed in this, as I was just about to come to, but in Rugby World Cup years, they just play 2 games. So yeah, it changes. Anyway, do you want to have a guess which team wins it more out of Australia and New Zealand?
I actually happen to know when the last time Australia won it was, because it was so long ago. Been 23 years since Australia last won it.
Yep.
Which is very impressive. 2002 was last time, and Australia were genuinely good in the early 2000s. They won the World Cup in 99, runners-up in 2003 to England. Since then, not been as good, but even so, I was surprised to have learnt that. I thought they would have snuck one in the meantime, but yeah, 23 in a row. 22 in a row, I should say.
52-12 and 1 draw is the record. Games-wise, that's 112-37 to New Zealand with 7 draws.
That's incredible.
And then points-wise, it's 3,587 to 2,357 to New Zealand. So New Zealand pump them.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Yeah. There are a couple of other weird little trophies kicking about as part of the Rugby Championship in not dissimilar way to the Six Nations. So you have the Freedom Cup, which is played between New Zealand and South Africa. You have the Mandela Challenge Plate, which is played between Australia and South Africa. And then you have the Puma Trophy, played between Australia and Argentina. There isn't trophies between Argentina and New Zealand and Argentina and South Africa yet.
I imagine there's probably not much competition quite yet for that, but I should point out that Argentina have won the Puma Trophy the last couple of seasons. So they are currently, you would say, better than Australia, the 3rd best team in this tournament.
Do you want to hazard a guess at what the overall record is in the Rugby Championship?
The overall, no, please tell me.
So Argentina have a grand total of 0 titles.
Yes, I knew that.
Australia have 4. Their last title was in 2015, which they made the Rugby World Cup final of. So that makes sense. They also won in 2011 and 2000 and 2001. And as you've already pointed out, between 99 and 2003 in particular, they were very good. So that makes sense, doesn't it? Australia with 4. South Africa have a surprisingly low number of titles. They only have 5. So they are the current holders.
Oh, that is low.
Yeah, they are the current holders. They won last year. They also won in 2019, which made sense because they were world champions. They also won in 2009, which made sense because they were world champions. And they also won in 2004 and 1998. And 1998 you might think makes sense because they were world champions in 1995. However, New Zealand have basically won the rest. So they are absolutely miles ahead. They won 20 Rugby Championships.
20 out of 29. That's ridiculous.
Insane. Yeah.
That puts my 6 out of 9 World Cups to shame for the women. 20 out of 29.
Honestly, mate, I don't understand how you can have that kind of stranglehold against these nations. Like, we're not talking, like you said earlier, we're talking about an extremely proud and successful sporting nation in Australia, and we're talking about one of the great rugby nations of the world in South Africa. And New Zealand still batter them historically and consistently. Like, basically, it got set up in 96, and New Zealand didn't lose the tournament for 2 years. They won the first 2 tournaments, but then they came bottom in 98, but then they won again in 1999. And this was despite South Africa being world champions in 95. South Africa's first win then was in 98. And then I mentioned the Aussies coming in and picking up a few. But yeah, that 2004 tournament is probably the only tournament that's worth mentioning because in terms of like just giving everyone a little bit of a tidbit of a historical competition, everyone beat everyone and finished on level point. But South Africa won on points difference. So that was kind of fun.
That's crazy.
But yeah, like it's insane, mate. Like New Zealand are ridiculously good. And you see some of the reason that, like, I watch this tournament and I will probably watch every game of it is because the talent is on show in this tournament is wild. Like the best players play in this tournament, basically.
It's slightly contrasting styles generally.
The French would have something to say about that.
Well, yes.
And the Irish, to be fair.
But generally speaking, year on year, if you average it up over this entire period, the best players in the world will be mostly in this tournament.
Yeah.
Just how it is.
It is just how it is. And there's been some of the greatest rugby players that have ever played the game in the tournament. I mean, one of them I want to mention just because we'll shoehorn him into the World Cup episode, like the Men's World Cup episode when it comes round. But like, I feel like when you mention rugby, you have to mention this guy. Do you want to have a guess?
Is it Jonah Lomu?
It's Jonah Lomu.
I mean, I don't know if we mentioned this in the previous episode. I think we may have done, but we talk about people who we looked up to. There's people who transcend their sports. There's obviously Tiger Woods and there's Michael Jordan, blah, blah, blah. Jonah Lomu was the only reason I'd heard of rugby in 1995, 1996, 1997. This is before I'd ever played rugby, before I'd ever been anywhere near a school that even thought about rugby. It was just football in my life before that. But everyone knew who Jonah Lomu was, and it was partly because he was brilliant, partly because he was like nothing we'd ever seen before, and obviously partly because he had a video game, which helped as well.
Yes, he did.
In his name. Jonah Lomu Rugby, what a game.
And it was a great game.
Fantastic commentary in that game as well.
Yes, yeah, Zinzan Brook. I mean,
some of the Sri Lankan names particularly, I wish I could remember them, but they were fantastic. Lapsaya Sangpong or something? Oh, it's fantastic anyway.
Yeah.
With the restart.
It was, I like...
He's iconic.
He is iconic. That's a great word for him.
He is. He completely tore England apart in the 1995 World Cup. Obviously, South Africa ended up on the losing side. New Zealand ended up on the losing side to South Africa in that final. So he never won that World Cup. But he carried on playing at such a high standard for a few years. But unfortunately, his kidney troubles got the better of him. He kept trying comebacks, but never quite made it, and had to retire eventually. And unfortunately, lost his life a few years ago to the illness. Yeah. Which is sad.
It's really sad, and he actually died pretty much penniless as well, due to like a series of medical issues and business failures, I think. And I think he also had an interesting past with sort of relationships and divorces as well, did Jonah.
Yes, which doesn't help, yeah.
But he was like, I mean, you said it, iconic is a great word for him, but he was the first global superstar of Rugby Union, right? But like, for those
right at the start of the professional era,
yeah. And for those who don't know, firstly, he threw Will Carling like a rag doll in that game that you were talking about against us. And the reason he was able to do that, and people might be wondering why they're waxing lyrical about this bloke so much, he was 6'5", 19 stone. So in American money, that's 276 pounds. For those of you on the continent, 125 kgs. He's a Hall of Famer. He's the youngest ever All Black at the time. He made his debut in 1994, age 19. And he could run like the wind. So this bloke is like the size of a second row or back row forward playing on the wing with like electric pace and agility. So he could like run round you, he could run over you, and he could do you with finesse. Like, he was a freak. And the reason I wanted to talk about him or bring him up in this episode was because this is the only major title he won, the Rugby Championship, like at international level. He never won the World Cup because, as you say, he lost in the final in 95, and then New Zealand got dumped in the semis in 99.
Semis, by France, in 99.
Yeah, in a classic, and then by the time 2003 came along, although New Zealand went out in the semis again to Australia, who were the hosts, he wasn't playing because of his illness. But he scored 37 tries and 63 caps. But he only scored 4 times in the Tri Nations, and all of his tries were scored against Australia because he never scored a try against South Africa, which is pretty crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah. But he won the Tri Nations in 96. He missed 97 through his illness. He won it again in 99. And he played in the others as well, like 98, 2000, 2001, which were won by other nations, as we've already mentioned. And he won again in 2002, but he only played in one test because he got ill again. And then it was at the end of 2002 that his career, when he basically took it was like his original retirement. He came back to the domestic game. He never got back to international level, but he basically retired from international rugby at age 32, which is so young. But the thing is, he left like an indelible mark on this tournament because the game of the century, as it's being called, was played in front of like a huge crowd in, I think it was Melbourne, 109,000 in 2000, when Australia were world champs and New Zealand were going over there to play them. It was a classic. I think it's like a one-score game. And in that game, Jonah scored the winner in the dying minutes, basically. And they said it's so like understated. They say he brushed past a desperate Stephen Larkham and tiptoed down the line. I'm sure Stephen Larkham probably wouldn't describe it as being brushed past, and I doubt the fullback would have described an oncoming Jonah Lomu as tiptoeing anywhere. But he scored. He scored in the last minute to win that, and that's probably like his biggest moment in this tournament. But he scored a try against every major test playing nation in the world except South Africa and weirdly Wales.
Fair enough.
But yeah, he died age 40, which is, really, really young.
2015, I think, wasn't it?
Which is really sad. But Jonah Lomu, one of the greats.
Hit me like a ton of bricks, that did when he died, yeah.
Yeah, he's up there with like a Shane Warne death.
I was literally about to say the only comparable thing I can say when you worship someone so much from your childhood who's not from your own nation as well, is very comparable, is Shane Warne. But yeah, very sad.
And we will talk about Shane Warne because we love Shane Warne when it comes to cricket and the Ashes, which is on the horizon now. Yep,
can't wait.
So,
how to cricket is going to be a lot longer than 3 minutes.
We say this in every episode. People are going to be like, people who know about cricket will be like, stop going on, you two. And then people who don't know about cricket will be wondering, like, what the hell is this all about? Yeah, but we don't shy away from a challenge here on the Almanac. Most tries in the Rugby Championship.
Most tries. Someone who's played a lot.
Yeah, another name.
Oh, he's someone from New Zealand.
No.
Is it not?
South African.
Ooh. Go on, tell me.
Brian Abana.
Oh, of course it is.
Yeah. Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I'm offended it didn't pop into my head. That's the obvious answer. Of course it is.
Yeah, he scored 21 times. Although, you say of course it is, and I do agree with you, of course it is, because it's Brian Abana and he was unreal. He's on 21, but Bodie Barrett and Rieko Ioane are on 20 and 19 respectively, so they could go past him this tournament. Because they will both play for New Zealand.
At least one of them will in 6 matches. Yeah. At least one of them will.
But yeah, Abana is Hall of Famer, one-time Player of the Year. He only won it once in 2009, but that's because South Africa haven't won much, and New Zealand have won an awful lot. And when he won, this is a cool stat about Brian Abana though. When he won in 2009 in the Rugby Championship, or Tri Nations as it was, it meant that he had won every tournament in professional Southern Hemisphere rugby.
Fair play.
Yeah, that is unreal, isn't it? And he made his debut in 2004 after South Africa won their Tri Nations in 2004, aged just 21. And then he retired in 2018, the year before South Africa won the Rugby Championship in 2019. So he missed the boat on a couple of other ones, but I'm sure he will not mind. His 50th test was a Tri Nations 31-19 win over New Zealand. And it was the first time South Africa had been the All Blacks in successive games at home in 33 years. So that's kind of a cool little Rugby Championship twist for you.
Yeah, nice.
There's only one other player I want to talk about in any kind of detail. There's 2 other people.
I know who that's going to be.
Yeah, go on. Steal my thunder.
I'm going to guess it's the guy who's probably the top point scorer in the tournament.
He is.
Of all time. Would that be Mr. Dan Carter?
It is, yes. He's, fuck me. This guy, he's not just the top point scorer in the tournament, he's the point scorer of all time. He's the only player to get more than 1,500 test points. His total's 1,598. 300 odd ahead of Jonny Wilkinson. He averaged 15 points a game, mate, in professional rugby. So
it's ludicrous.
That's 3 tries or 5 kicks at goal that are penalties for those who are unfamiliar, which is, sometimes teams don't score 15 points in a game. Not that often if they're winning, but it's possible. And this is a man that was doing that individually. Obviously a Hall of Famer, 3-time World Player of the Year, 554 Rugby Championship points, miles ahead of second, which is Mornay Steyn on 390. He's also got 6 tries in there. He's a 9 times winner. He's a 12-time Bledisloe Cup winner. He never lost it, obviously.
Nice.
And the only years that he competed in that he didn't win were 2004, 2009, 2011, 2015. He is, to me, the best player of all time. He's definitely the best 10. what he did to that Lions team in 2005, was it? Was
should have been illegal.
Yeah, it was. That shouldn't have been on free-to-air television. Like, it should have been after the watershed, at least. Like, it was a disgrace.
Not the worst thing one of those New Zealand players did to a Lion in that tournament, to be fair.
No, yeah, or Brian O'Driscoll. But yeah, mate, Dan Carter, like he's the guy that made me fall in love with rugby. Like, actually fall in love with it. Like Jonny Wilkinson was the guy that inspired me as a kid to play it and stuff because he was English. This guy made me fall in love with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason why I tune into this tournament. It's because every now and again New Zealand spit one of these blokes out, like a Richie McCaw, a Bodie Barrett, a Dan Carter. I mean, you could just list them all, to be honest. So fun. Ben Smith, Jesus, underrated. What a player.
Yeah.
He's also in top 5 try scorers in the tournament, I think. I was
going to say they're just all Blacks.
Pretty much. Although,
probably.
Israel Folau is the Aussie top try scorer. He got 14. He's a controversial man.
And he would have got more
he would.
Had he been able to, keep his mouth shut.
For those who don't know anything about
tweeting.
Israel, in the interest of fairness, okay, like, because I think this is important, he is deeply, deeply, deeply religious. Like, and I don't mean he just believes in God. Like, he grew up a Mormon. He was an active member of the Assemblies of God's Christian Dominionation or something, and is non-Trinitarian, which I didn't even know was a thing, but it basically means that you believe that God is an amalgamation of like 3 different people or something. He's a fundamental...
The superb description. Faultless.
He's a fundamental Christian. His father was a pastor. So let's just say he's not an ally.
No.
And
that's the starting point.
Yes.
Of this, the assumption you can make from the beginning.
And he also refused to take the knee and things like that. So basically he just isn't shy about saying he's not an ally and has said some dumb shit. And Rugby Australia eventually got fed up with him, cancelled his contract. And so did the Waratahs, I think it was who he played for.
He did play for the Waratahs, yeah.
So then he dabbled with rugby league, and I think he came over to Europe and played Catalan Dragons. That didn't last too long, and now he plays his rugby in Japan, I think, and is now representing Tonga because he is of Tongan descent and qualifies through his family heritage.
He's actually played all 3 major Australian contact sports.
Has he?
He played Aussie rules football as well, yeah.
Supremely talented dude as well then, but...
Supremely talented. And as I say, he'd be a lot higher on that try-scoring list, and he'd probably be well into his 100 caps for Australia now.
Sure.
Had he been less controversial.
Yeah.
Had he been chill.
Had he been chill is a good way of putting it. So let's leave Mr. Folau. I think it's only right that we did a little doff of the cap to an Argentinian. And so the person I thought I should probably just throw into the mix is Nicolas Sanchez, because he is the only Argentinian on the trial point scoring list. He's got 346. He's in 3rd, which, considering for a long time when Nicolas Sanchez was playing in this tournament, Argentina were getting battered, is really quite impressive. They are a lot more competitive now. He still plays for the national team.
Which is impressive because he's basically our age.
Yeah. He's definitely at the twilight of his career. And he was a top scorer in the 2014 championship with 54 points. He's also part of the first Argentinian side to ever beat New Zealand, which only actually happened in 2020, which shows how damn good New Zealand are. Yeah, and he's an Argentinian great. So yeah, you get talented guys from everywhere. That's the point. Argentina, I mean, I remember when they had Contempomi and Pichot and people like that, which is, I think, pre their involvement in the Rugby Championship, but they were
probably a big part in them getting into it.
Yeah, because Pichot's now in administration, and Contempomi was the coach for a bit, I think.
I think he is their coach now.
Oh, he could be. Yeah, he could be now. Actually, that's a good point.
Yeah,
they've got a lot of guys playing in France and England's leagues now, and are really quite talented. So yeah, mate, that's all I really had on the Rugby Championship. I'm like super fucking psyched for it. I absolutely love it. For all the reasons discussed. Probably just going to have to defer to you whilst you give us some stuff on the women, because I've hijacked the episode.
And that's fine. To be honest, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the Women's World Cup for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because I've been very, very busy the past week for various reasons. Indeed. That you're very well aware of.
Yeah, very good and noble reasons, and you're a wonderful person. But I'll leave it at that for the public.
Yes, but nevertheless, I've been delving into it a little bit, and the second reason is I would highly recommend. There's many other good podcasts who go into this in great detail. The Good, the Scaz and the Rugby is fantastic. I'd recommend you going back to the beginning and listening to that from the start, because it's very, very entertaining stuff and very well presented. But there's other sources too, and I wouldn't do it justice even if I'd spent weeks and months preparing for this. But in terms of the sport of women's rugby, I'll delve just a little bit into the history, just a quick one, because it's really very similar to anything we've said before about football, about other women's sports. Ultimately, it comes down to women want to play. They don't have the opportunity to play other than in sort of, I guess you could say, exhibition matches. Often met with ridicule from the papers, often as like almost like halftime shows kind of thing, just sort of like for the entertainment of the public rather than taken as a serious thing. Like I think in the sort of during the First World War, there was one match in particular where quite a big match had a halftime show with women's rugby in it. So that's the sort of standards it was originally. There was some early matches, and again during the First World War in Britain, there's more opportunities for women to play in the absence of the men, who'd obviously largely got off to fight the war. There's a game in 1917 where Cardiff ladies beat Newport ladies 6-0 in a charity match at Cardiff Arms Park. So yeah, big stadium where the national team played, the Welsh national team played. They all had to wear protective headgear, but nevertheless, it was something. There was some rugby played by women in the 1920s in France. There was a 10-a-side league. They flourished a bit in the 1920s before fading into the 1930s. Rugby league as well. This is obviously Rugby Union we're talking about today, but rugby league as well had a bit of women's game forming in Australia in the 1920s and 1930s, particularly in New South Wales. The first sort of real build-up of women's rugby union in the United Kingdom properly happened through the university games. So Edinburgh University, first of all, played some matches against teams from other universities. There was also matches in France, in Toulouse. The first documented women's club match was held in 1968, and French formed the first National Women's Rugby Association in 1970. Around the same time, it appeared in Canada as well, so they were leading the way there. And as the sport got a bit more popular in the 70s and 80s, university teams first and foremost in the USA, in Europe, in Holland, Spain and Italy. And around that point as well, the first non-university clubs started forming. In the 1980s, club championships started in the US and Sweden. Women's rugby appeared in Japan. There was even women's games organised in the USSR at around this time.
That's weird.
In the Soviet Union, yeah. The first women's international match was held in 1982, which was the Netherlands versus France, and it was won 4-0 by France, which is a scoreline which is impossible in today's game. But at this point, it was 4 points for a try, so it was obviously 1 try to 0.
That's a long time to play for one score as well.
It is. I don't know what the conditions were like, or whether it was a shortened match, as tended to be the case at the time. But nevertheless, you got to start somewhere.
You do.
So in New Zealand, as you mentioned, while they hosted their first official women's rugby match at Eden Park in 1987, the National Union didn't fund or offer any structural support at all, and the New Zealand women's rugby team as a whole played its first match in 1990. There was an international tournament held, which was sort of a precursor to the World Cup, called Rugby Fest, which was held in New Zealand and won by the hosts, unsurprisingly. But it was 1991 when the first Women's Rugby World Cup was unofficially, at the time, it didn't have backing from the IRB, but it was held in Wales. And retrospectively, this is now considered the first Women's World Cup. As I said, it was held in Wales, and it was won in the final by the United States of America, who beat England.
Saw that. So weird.
So it was essentially a rogue tournament in the early days. The tournament's been held 9 times since then. In that 9 times, as I mentioned many times, New Zealand have won 6 of them. USA won 1. Obviously, they won the first one, beating England. And the other 2 have been won by England. England have also been runners-up, so they've won 2. Out of 9 tournaments, England have been runners-up 6 times.
Brutal.
And the only time they missed the final was in 1998, and they came 3rd in that tournament.
Who was that final? New Zealand and Canada?
New Zealand must have beaten the USA in that. I'm working out from a process of elimination, because Canada were the only other team to have reached the final, but they did so in 2014 in France, where they lost to England in the final. So England won in 2014.
Right.
So yeah, the tournament this year, it's 16 teams for the first time. It was 12 teams previously. And this year, 16 teams, 4 groups of 4 teams, being held in England. And every year for the past few tournaments, the attendances have been going up and up and up and up and up. And I strongly suspect they're going to go up not quite exponentially, but significantly
Sharply.
this year.
Yeah.
So there's some matches being held in York, which is one of the smaller stadiums to host them. Obviously, the stadium at York's not massive; it's only a few thousand people. But there's some big venues being used. Some Premiership stadiums, Rugby Premiership stadiums being used, and the final, of course, is at Twickenham this year. So a few records for you. Obviously, most wins, unsurprisingly, New Zealand.
No prizes for that one.
Most overall points. Listeners of the Good, the Scaz, and the Rugby will know who this is.
I was going to say, and I knew this one. Emily Scarrett.
Scarrett, yeah, who is the Scaz in the Good, the Scaz, and the Rugby. She scored 175 points in total, which is a full 60 points clear of second place, which is Kelly Brazier of New Zealand in second, which is ridiculous. And she's in this tournament as well. And what will probably, you would imagine, be her fifth and her last, you would imagine, but you never know, Rugby World Cup. She came back from injury, actually, last year. She had a really bad neck injury. It was quite a complex neck injury. She went to a surgeon for an initial consultation, and he told her to retire. Fortunately, she did not retire, and she'll be playing in this tournament as a result, which is great.
Nice.
Most points in one tournament. Care for a guess?
No idea.
Emily Scarrett.
I should have got that, but then
you up for an easy one.
Well, I thought, but then I did. The only thought that went through my head was that she's played in quite a few tournaments. So this
is true. Yeah, so she may have spread them out.
Yeah. So anyway, Emily Scarrett.
She got 70 points total in 2014, which is pretty impressive.
Wow.
Most points in one game.
Emily Scarrett.
No, no, I'm saying one for a full there. It was Magali Harvey of Canada. Scored 41 against Hong Kong in 2017. 41, yeah. So Hong Kong, bless them, they got quite... They
got pumped.
Well done for qualifying, first of all. There's a few more stats here. The most tries in total is 20 by Portia Woodman-Whitcliffe. The most tries in one tournament is 13 in 2017 by Portia Woodman-Whitcliffe. The most in one match is by her as well, and that was 8 against Hong Kong in 2017. New Zealand won that game 121-0.
Not the first time that New Zealand side has done that to another side in a World Cup, though. The men's team have done that a few times.
But they got there.
Yeah.
And fair play to them for getting there. As I say, it's 4 groups of 4 this year. England in Pool A alongside Australia, United States, and Samoa. It's actually, pretty tough group, to be fair. The other 3 groups are in Pool B, Canada, Scotland, Wales, and Fiji. Pool C is New Zealand, Ireland, Japan, and Spain. And Pool D is France, Italy, South Africa, and Brazil. They're all in seed order, so obviously South Africa 3rd seeds, as we mentioned, not so strong. But Canada, as we said, are the second best team in the world at the moment, ranked 2 in the world rankings. And the other teams in the top 4, New Zealand and France, so they are the top seeds. So expect them in the semi-finals unless someone can make an upset happen.
And England just put 40 on France the other day in the warm-up. So
yeah, I mean, England are in a banging form as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I really think that Rugby Sevens is going to really grow the women's game as well, with it being an Olympic sport now. It's big in the USA, certainly. Who was it? There's someone on Dancing on the Stars, one of the US players. Forgive me, I've completely forgotten what her name is. But Dancing on the Stars is obviously their equivalent of Strictly Come Dancing. So anyone who knows Strictly Come Dancing in the UK will appreciate it. It's a big deal. Iona Maya?
Yes, that was it.
Yeah, I think I might be getting her name.
Let me quickly check. Ilona Meyer.
That was close.
Ilona Meyer, yeah. So yeah, she was an Olympic bronze medalist. Obviously, went on Dancing on the Stars. So it makes these rugby players, these athletes, into Olympians. Puts them completely on equal standing with the men as well in the women's tournament. It's a chance to make yourself into superstars, and
good thing.
The
thing that's cool about the women's tournament that I sort of picked up on when I was just very basic reading about it was there's been three new participants in the last 3 tournaments. That's relatively slow to growth, but that's 12-year window. And obviously, Sevens only went back into the Olympic program for Rio, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
So you'll now, by the time the next Olympic comes around in America, that'll be a 12-year cycle of Sevens. And you'll probably start to see a bit more growth in and around sort of like this next sort of 4 or 5 year period, because I think only 22 teams have participated in the Women's Rugby World Cup, although 17 others are part of their qualifying campaigns. But obviously you compare that to how many countries compete in the Olympics and have an Olympic program that they might fund, which would see participation at least in some form of rugby potentially. Like you can envisage a scenario, can't you, where it gets a lot more competitive quickly.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially because the growth of the thing that I also think is really cool about the women's game is you've obviously mentioned some of the countries in there, and we haven't mentioned the ones that sort of were in the qualifying that didn't qualify, that were in the qualifying tournament but didn't qualify for the main tournament. And it's a much wider game than the men's game. You have like countries like China and India, a heap of African nations, a few random European ones like Finland and Czech Republic, Belgium. Yeah, Kazakhstan, obviously you've already mentioned, Hong Kong. Like these aren't nations that are big in the men's game.
Yeah, they obviously a lot of these nations do play in the men's game. I think Belgium and Hong Kong particularly, just to pick random examples. They certainly do have participation in the men's game, but the gap between the top and the bottom in the men's game is vast. Obviously, it probably is in the women's game as well. The difference between England and these nations is probably vast, but there's a bit more space in the leeway that if you invest in it, as I say, get people playing, maybe get some inspiration from a good Olympic program or something like that. There is an opportunity there, and it is probably a bit closer in the midfield and a bit more competitive when it comes to filling those remaining slots in the World Cup.
Imagine how good India and China could be.
Yeah, exactly, at any sport, if they invested in it.
Yeah. Maybe now they have an incentive to. Do you know something else?
Well, the Chinese women did very well at the Olympics.
In the sevens.
They were pretty impressive. I think they beat GB, I
think they did.
Not wrong in saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It's a tale as old as time. It's a sort of copy and paste, recycle the same model. Yeah. Grow the sport. You'll see the standard go up. You'll see participation increase, so on and so forth.
Exactly. More people start playing.
Yeah. Do you know one of the little quirks, which I also think is really nice and good for the game, that's slightly changing the subject, but still obviously on the tournament itself, is since 2010, all of the final refs have been women.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's good.
Before that, it was men. But I think, that's obviously another thing that's important, isn't it? Coaches, referees, officials, diversity across the range of roles, not just the players. So I thought that was kind of cool that you have female officials dominating the women's tournament now. They're not reliant on the men.
Yeah, indeed.
I had one other fun, quirky stat I wanted to tell you. I actually wondered if you were going to tell me it. There's only ever been 5 drop goals in the women's.
Yes. No, I know that. That's bonkers.
Hasn't been one since 2014. And there's only ever been more than one in one tournament, which is 1991. Where there was 2.
Yeah, so just to put this into context, there's only ever been 5 drop goals in the entirety of Women's World Cup rugby history. The record in a single game in the men's tournament.
Yanni De Beer.
Can you remember that?
Just remember Yanni De Beer.
Yanni De Beer was 5. Was it 5? It was, wasn't it?
5, yeah.
Yeah. Well, just tore England apart, just drop goal, drop goal, drop goal.
We would have our vengeance though, because the drop goal master would emerge after that tournament. JW.
Yes. England did go and win the next World Cup with a drop goal in the last second.
Yeah.
Not against South Africa, but still.
And the first 5-8.
Did beat South Africa in that tournament.
Or a fly half who become incredible at dropping goals as much as he did kicking them more generally.
Yeah.
Johnny. Did you see that Guinness advert about his time in Toulon where they said
yes,
loved by the English, adored by the French?
Yeah.
It's a very, very good advert. Because it's true.
Again, yeah, it is. And again, despite this being an episode on the Rugby Championship and the Women's World Cup, here we are talking about Jonny Wilkinson. Shame on us.
Well,
in reverent tones.
You see the sport through the prism of your own experience, and our youth was heavily dominated by that. To put it into context for people, England won the World Cup when Jack and I were 15. So quite an impressionable period in a young man's life. So of course we're going to look at it through the prism of Jonny Wilkinson. And that's why I was waxing lyrical about Dan Carter in the interest of balance, because he came on the scene
indeed
around that time.
Very noble of you.
Well, I mean, is there anything else to say? Or is it, where can you watch it?
Where can you watch it, yeah. Where can you watch the Rugby Championship, Ben?
In New Zealand is Sky, which is the same as home. In Australia, I believe it's 9 Network and Stan. And in Argentina, it's on ESPN Latin America. And I couldn't find out where it's on in South Africa, but I don't think South Africans need me to tell them where to watch the rugby. And if
you'd hope not, wouldn't you?
If you're in Asia, it's in Setanta. It's on Setanta. It's probably on Sky.
Which it always surprised me that Setanta's still a thing.
Yeah, I know. It always surprises me as well. Where can you watch the Women's Rugby World Cup?
Well, if you're in the United Kingdom, you can certainly watch it on the BBC and on BBC iPlayer. Every match will be broadcast, I think on both, but certainly on iPlayer at the very least. I'm fairly certain that all England's matches will be front and centre on the BBC. So, yeah, beyond that, I'm afraid Google is your friend because I'm not as prepared as Ben.
I mean, to be fair, I just use Google, so we probably should just tell people Google it. But it's also nice to just have the information spoon-fed to you occasionally, isn't it? So,
it is.
We're providing a service here. So,
It makes you feel respected and looked after by your podcast host.
It gives us a veneer of credibility, which we don't have.
Which we need sometimes.
No, that's it. Where are we going next week?
Next week we're going to the Arthur Ashe. We're going to US Open tennis.
Flushing Meadows.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Looking forward to that. Arthur Ashe, interesting guy.
Yes, I'm certain will get a rather large mention along with a few others because there's a lot of good history, particularly sort of middle of the 20th century history around that tournament. So, yeah, be fun.
Yeah, and it'll also be cool to tell everyone again about Emma Raducanu because, you see sport through the prisms of your own experience, Jack.
You certainly do, Ben. And that was a good story regardless.
It was a ridiculous story.
Even if she wasn't British.
Yeah, well, that'll be us next week. We'll be chewing the fat over that. That'll be good. So until then, goodbye, my friend.
Have a good week. Speak to you later.
Bye.
For the 20th time, thank you for listening to the Sporting Almanac podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, then as always, a like, a subscribe, a rate or a comment would be amazing, but please do tell your friends and family first and foremost. It only takes a second, it means the world, and it can make a huge difference. Our theme tune is Oh Yeah by Harmony Productions. You can find us on Instagram and Blue Sky at the Sporting Almanac, or drop us an email at thesportingalmanacpodcast@gmail.com. Next up, we're talking Flushing Meadows and Arthur Ashe ahead of the US Open tennis. Until then, whether you prefer the ball thrown wide at every opportunity or mauled over by the unstoppable force of a pack in unison, stay curious. Sport is nothing without the history that makes it. Goodbye.